Hi guys, Lewis here from Authority Hacker, and today we're going to be looking at Beaver Builder. And Beaver Builder is a front-end visual page builder for WordPress, and the guys behind this also offer a theme and a theme builder, but this is just going to be an overview of the page builder plugin itself. Now let's start with the interface, and it's quite easy to use, very intuitive, but the problem I have with it is that it's not very efficient. Now I'll explain what I mean, because at the top here we have a bar, we have the logo, and we have some buttons on the other side. Now to me this is just not a very good use of space, and I'm on a 13-inch MacBook Pro. I'm in full screen mode at the moment, but I really need all the space I can get when I'm working on this kind of machine. And I think they could do away with this bar entirely. They could move the buttons somewhere else, and the only time that it really comes in handy is when you lose this sidebar, and that does happen whenever you drag a module onto the page. And the only way to get that back into view is to click Add Content up here. Now I don't really like the way that system works. I know that Elementor has a much more elegant solution, and I think that Beaver Builder should maybe look into reworking that there, because it just doesn't quite work for me. The sidebar here also covers up content, so whenever you're building your page, the sidebar will cover up a percentage of that, which again is not the best way to handle it, in my opinion. I prefer a compressed view, so I'd rather have the content be squashed onto the page than to lose some visuals there. So that's another thing that I think they should work on. The panel is also very rigid. You can't adjust it or move it. There's no way to contract or expand, which would be handy considering that it does cover up the content behind. Adding modules onto the page, and these are modules here, so if I drag a button over, you'll see that it's not very streamlined. So what I get here is a settings box, and if I just want to have that button on the page for now and I just want to save it, it won't let me, because it's actually asking for a link before I can insert that. And it doesn't just happen with buttons, it happens with other modules here. Some of them require certain information before you can get them onto the page, which again is not really ideal, because sometimes you just want to see how it looks. You want to build your design before you worry about those finer details. So I mean, overall it's not bad, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the interface and the overall user experience. Now let's talk about the modules, and I just quickly skimmed over this a minute ago, but modules are the elements that you drag onto the page, and that's how you build your page essentially. Now Beaver Builder does cover all the basics here. It has audio, buttons, headings, images, but it doesn't really venture too far out of that. So for example, it doesn't have a portfolio module, a price list module, a forms module. Even under the advanced modules here, I mean, there's a good amount of stuff here, but if you want any of the things I just described, and probably a few more that I've missed, you're going to need third-party plugins, and that often breaks the visual experience of using a page builder. Now, the modules are also limited in terms of customization. So for example, I can't add a drop shadow to a button. So let me just get a button on the page here, and I'll show you what I mean. Drag that on. If you go to style, we have background color, background hover color. There isn't really a whole lot going on here, and there's no drop shadow option. So that's one thing. You also can't adjust the roundness of an icon. You can't even apply a border to an image without resorting to CSS. And that's really the problem with the builder, is that it relies too much on custom CSS. And again, that's not what page builders should be about. And there is an alternative. You can use something called Ultimate Add-ons for Beaver Builder, and I have the website open here. And what this does is it adds over 40 new modules and almost 200 templates to the standard Beaver Builder plugin. It's not free though. It does cost $69 for a 1-year license, and I don't believe you have to renew that every time. You just won't get the updates. So let's head back over to Beaver Builder, and let's talk about flexibility. So in terms of creating layouts, I do like Beaver Builder's row system, so I'm going to show you how that works here. If I bring the sidebar back into view and I click row layouts, you can drag in a column amount, so that's a 3-column layout, and then I can drag below that a 2-column layout, and you can build your page that way. And I also like how you can adjust the row width here. It's quite a robust system, and it really doesn't take long to get used to how it works. Now, I still ran into some limitations. So, in terms of flexibility, there were some things that just really didn't make sense to me. So, for example, I couldn't manually resize images, I couldn't apply any custom fonts, and I couldn't manually set a width for individual rows. You can see here the width of these rows are the same. And the only way to change the width of the row is to go to Tools and Global Settings, which will apply everywhere. You cannot set these individually. So for me, that was a really big problem, and the only way around it is to use custom CSS. So there is a definite CSS dependency with this plugin, which is worrying, especially if you don't know how to use CSS. You'll probably have a lot of trouble with this. Let's move on to templates. So the template library can be found up here. If you click templates, it will bring up the selection. Now, there aren't a whole lot in here. They are categorized, which is nice. And again, these are not amazing, but a good, I think they provide a good foundation to work from. And one issue I found here was that you need to have a full width page template for these to work. So to give you an example, I'm going to drop this one in, replace existing layout, and you'll see that it fills my entire screen here. As you can see, it's fit onto the page nicely. Now, this only happened because I have a full width page template active, and this doesn't come with Beaver Builder. This is something you have to either install separately or use as part of your theme. If you don't have that option as part of your theme, you can use something like this, which is the full width templates for any theme and page builder plugin. You can find this in the WordPress plugins repository, and it is a free plugin, so I would recommend that. Now, aside from choosing the templates from the Beaver Builder library, you can also create your own. You can customize the ones that Beaver Builder has and then resave them as your own. And you can also save individual sections or rows. So let's say I wanted to save this row over here. I click this spanner icon and save as, and that would allow me to save the entire row. And you'll notice here that I can also save this as a global row, which means I can use this anywhere on my site, and I can change it from one central location, which is a really powerful feature, and it also extends to individual modules, so that's really, really handy. Okay, let's talk about speed. Easily one of the biggest flaws of this plugin for me is that it's painfully slow at times. When you drag any element onto the page, you get a loading screen. I'm sure you've seen that so far, so I'm going to just show you one more time. Drag that in, and there we go, we get a loading screen. And this is anywhere from a couple of seconds to maybe 5 seconds every time you drag an element onto the page. It also happens whenever you're editing an existing element, and it happens when you're trying to preview changes. Let me give you an example. Let's scroll down. Let's change the position of this image here. So I can drag this over, which is quite nice, by the way, and I can align this to the left, and you'll notice that it doesn't move for a few seconds and then it moves. So there's definitely a few second delay there, which can be really annoying when you're just trying to experiment with a certain element on the page, and you're having to wait every time you make a small change. And if that doesn't seem like a very big deal, you have to consider that it does get old very fast, and all of those seconds really start to add up in the long run. So if there's one thing they need to fix, it's this, in my opinion. Okay, in terms of support, I really like the support that came from Beaver Builder, especially the pre-sales support. They have a dedicated support forum, detailed documentation, and they have an active Facebook community group which has over 6,000 members. And the good thing about the group is that they are other Beaver Builder users. They can recommend workarounds and alternatives, and it's also a collaborative effort. So overall, the support options with this plugin are really good. And finally, let's talk about the price. So I've got the pricing page up here. There is a free version of Beaver Builder, and you can find that in the WordPress plugin repository. It is very limited, more so than the paid version, so I really cannot recommend it, especially over something like Elementor, which is just head and shoulders above what Beaver Builder offers. Some might even argue at the paid level. So the lowest paid plan is the standard one here, and that's $99 for a 1-year license. But the good thing about this is that it's for unlimited sites, and that's quite generous in my opinion. You can also still use this after the year has expired. You just won't get the dedicated support and the updates, but you can continue to use the Facebook group. So really, I don't think that's a huge deal. So it's not something that you necessarily have to do. It's not the cheapest, but it's still reasonable considering what you get. So to wrap this up, Beaver Builder really isn't a bad plugin, but unless you're willing to, buy add-ons or go to town with CSS, it honestly just feels a bit too limited for my liking. And in my opinion, there are currently better options out there. So I recommend you check out our page builder comparison post, which you can find on the blog over at authorityhacker.com. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.